everybody.
Good afternoon.
Great to see everybody. I am up here to practice, and I'm doing a speech. The topic is research your project. Even though I work for the Fish and Wildlife Service, most of you know I work in the fire program, and there are a whole lot of other programs in the agency I work for, and one of them is California Condor Recovery. And I'll just tell you a little bit more about that. So how many of you here are familiar with turkey vultures? See them? They're pretty common. They feed off roadkill. A lot of times you're going down the road and we're in the middle of the road, and they're scavengers, so they eat a lot of the dead things. They don't necessarily kill things themselves. They eat things that are already dead. Well, California condor is a cousin of the turkey vulture. And just to get an idea, how many folks here are familiar with the condor? Heard of them? Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, well, I'm here to give you a very brief synopsis on some facts and some history, and I hope it sparks your curiosity. And I tried to get my computer working to show you the condor cam. But I couldn't get the Wi-Fi to stream the video, so you'll just have to look that up if you're curious. But I did bring some photos, and I'll pass these around, of wingspan and of the bird. But I'll just show you, before I get started, here's a California condor. Not exactly the most gorgeous bird out there. Covered in feathers except for his head, and bald is beautiful. Yeah? So I'm going to pass these around. There's a factoid sheet there. And I have a stuffy, which is the inspiration for this speech. So, and I'll pass that around in just a second. California condors are the North America's largest bird. The wingspan is over 10 feet, which is very interesting because there's some other large birds out there like the eagle and some other birds that you think that are the biggest bird, but actually the condor is, and it is the biggest. And it's one of the heaviest. It's not the heaviest. The swan is the heaviest, but it's about 25 pounds. The unique thing about condors is they're one of the longest living birds out there. They live about 60 years. And another unique thing is they only lay an egg sometimes every year, but usually every other year. And they lay one egg, one offspring. And you'll see that this is becoming a problem with condors and the population. But you know, other species of animals, they have either a litter of multiple chicks or multiple other babies, and or they can have babies a couple times a year. Well, this one is only every other year, and there's some problems with that. But up to 60 years, and I'm not exactly sure how how many years they can have babies, but I presume it's only about half that lifespan. Yeah, so right now the California condor lives in shrublands, oak woodlands, canyony cliff areas, and they can live up into the forests and the woods. And it eats, like I said before, dead carcasses like the turkey vulture. It eats only dead things. And that is becoming a problem, and I will get to that in just a second. Flight, it can fly up to 55 miles an hour and up to 15,000 feet above sea level. So that's really pretty spectacular as well. So it really uses updrafts of wind to its advantage to get to that height and to soar around and ultimately look for food and get to various places looking for food. And the personality, it really does not have predators per se. The chicks do. They're vulnerable when they're chicks in a nest and they can't fly away, but the adults don't have predators. So they're naturally curious, and they're not really afraid of a lot. They do, when they're feeding, they can be afraid of certain species, but they fly away, and nothing really eats condors necessarily, except for if some animals or other birds can get into the nest and eat the babies and the chicks before they can fly, and that is one predatory thing. But due to their curious personality, in areas where they exist, they will they'll feed on shiny objects and get curious that way, and sometimes that can be a problem. So about 10,000 years ago, when the dinosaurs roamed, there was a lot of population. They ate dinosaurs, plenty of food around. So their population decreased as climate changed, and about 500 years ago, they only really existed on the western U.S., and then about 300 years ago, about when the settlers came, their population really started to decline, really when people came. And really the reason for that is lead bullets. And I'll just say that's the major threat, because when you shoot an animal and you don't necessarily kill it, or else you kill it and then put the guts aside, the condors will come and feed on that animal and feed on the lead, and it'll poison them. And that is the number one cause of the decline in the condor population. And so quick history for recent, in 1987 there were 22 condors left in the world, and there was a determination by really essentially Congress that said, we're going to capture all these condors, we're going to preserve their DNA, we're going to start rearing eggs and young from captivity. And that has been very successful. And now today there are over 400 condors alive, and over half of them, about a little over half, are in the wild. So there's 200 birds now in the wild. And they are having babies in the wild. There are about 20 babies have been born in the wild so far, which is great. It's just a slow process, right? If they only have babies every once or twice a year, and there's only so many females. So what I wanted to end with is conservation efforts, what you can do to help the condor. First and foremost, if you are a hunter, you can use lead-free bullets. And this is a big effort now, is to have folks switch from lead bullets to non-lead bullets. And it really doesn't make that much of a difference for accuracy. And some people will argue that, but that's one of the major issues there. You can pick up microtrash, because they eat microtrash themselves, and they also feed it to the babies. Pick up a little pop tab, that they feed those to the babies, and that'll kill them. It'll tear up their insides and stuff. Let's see, and there's other things like other pesticides. We stopped using DDT a long time ago, but if you're a rancher in the area, use pesticides and other chemicals that are harmful to everything else. Condors are curious, and they'll eat it too, like antifreeze or petroleum products or other things. Just make sure that's clean in the area. Now we're just really proud that the population in California is increasing. There's some in Arizona and southern Utah, and I provided this really brief synopsis to you today, and I could go into much more information. It's important to me because preserving species is important in general, but if humans have something to do with it, like if we as humans are affecting other species, we can correct that. So it's really important to me to just get it out there, and this is a human problem that we can reverse it, and I think we're making small strides for that, but we can always do more. All right, thanks.